This session is going to be about Salesforce organization and how to make your Salesforce loyal and effective. And we have again with us 4 amazing entrepreneurs that I will shortly introduce before we get started. So closest to me is Shimo from Greenlight Planet, which is one of the fastest growing social enterprise we've seen over the years, with probably close to 10 million in sales last year of solar lanterns. We have Henning from Patrimonio, one of the most impressive programs selling the home improvement packages you've already heard about. And they have, I think, more than 350,000 clients having purchased this $1,000 package. So quite impressive. Then we have Suraj, the hunter that we described previously, with his network of evangelists, having sold over 200,000, or is it 300,000 already? 300,000 cook stoves in several countries, mainly Ghana in Africa. And finally, we have Molly from Living Goods, which is a greatly innovative network of women entrepreneurs who sell a basket of health-related goods, mainly in Uganda. So, with this great panel, I'll try to have questions that are in par with their high level. So the first question would be actually both for Henning and Suraj. You have 2 very different models, one being the farming model we've seen with expensive products for a few clients, and the other one being the hunting model, so one salesperson serving a lot of clients with smaller products. But you have something in common, which is basically to use part-time people to refer clients to your full-time staff at the branch office at the level of for Patrimonio, and to the salespeople who is moving around carrying the stove in the case of Toyota. So let's start with Henning. Could you tell us more about how this system, like 2-layer system, works?
Thanks, first of all, for the invitation. And well, the structure in Patrimonio, we have a sales manager, and this is an employee. And he is responsible for 3 offices, local offices in Patrimonio. I mean, usually like in one city or maybe 2 or 3 cities, depending on the size of the cities. And at the local level, at the local offices, we work with this part-time sales force. There we have, on one hand, what we call coordinators. These are also part-time community-based persons, and the majority of these are women from the communities, and they work then directly with the promoters, which are also community-based women. So that's the main structure, no? So the sales manager, these are employees, and then the coordinators and promoters, they work part-time and are part from the community, which is, in our findings since the beginning, very important, because they really generate the trust in the communities, no? So usually we try to find their kind of communities leaders, or at least people who are very well known in the communities. And well, so far, or at the national level in Mexico and Patrimonio, we talk about like 650 promoters and about 160 coordinators. Another important element is because anyway they work like part-time, so of course they have their own time schedule somehow. So the sales manager gives every week, they have a meeting at the local level, at the offices, to give a kind of training to the people, and of course also to see what are the results of the last week, what are the objectives for the next week. The sales force, the coordinators and promoters, they are paid weekly. And another important element to give some more incentives to the people, to the promoter or to the sales force, is also that we have an annual promoter meeting, which is, but there people only participate if they have a certain productivity per year, no? So this is another important element to motivate the people. And of course, 1 year is a very long period, so there's every time like follow-up meetings and information about this, no? How they are doing, how they can improve. so that they really can also assist to this important meeting or training and recognition meeting, where we bring the people from all over Mexico to one certain place. No? And of course, usually we search there for a particular place which is more motivating, where they haven't been before, and some special event. No?
So if I sum it up, your promotoras, even if they're just paid on commission, you still take care of them, train them, support them, they have meetings every week, which is a little bit different from the model Suraj is using with his evangelists, which I guess he has no idea how many there are exactly today because they're managed by the sales agents, right?
Yes, I don't.
Can you tell us more?
Yes, it boils down to economics. We make it worth their while. And the evangelists, actually, we recruit them from satisfied users because we do a lot of direct marketing. I started doing it myself and my partner. And we go into a village. When we get there introducing this new product and say it can save you 50% over your fuel, it's convenient, it's like they don't believe us. But we have a lot of, we are ready to take the ultimate risk. Okay, you can have it. If it's not all right, don't pay. And of course, we have the Toyota money box. If you don't save enough money from your fuel use into a Toyota money box to pay for the stove, don't pay. So at that stage, they are ready to try it. Then after trying it, they become believers. And after they become believers, even on their own, they start telling their families and friends about it. And later, when you have brought us about 10 customers, we have an informal policy of refunding your money, just to surprise it. We don't tell you we are going to do that. So then after I would say, look, why not start aggregating sales? Because we found out that after we have left the village, people who are sitting on the fence before, or the former unbelievers, now want to buy Toyota cook stoves. So they start telling people around that, okay, Toyota will come on so date, you can. So they aggregate it, but then they hand some money from it. It's not for free. And some of them started handing some money after some time that they actually turn it into full-time job. And this especially happens, when we get to new areas. And we also do, as part of the training, that it actually pays you to tell people in neighboring villages about it. And because you are the one telling them, you can actually hand part of the commission. It's like it's in your interest to tell other people you are helping your family and friends by giving them a useful product, but at the same time, you are handing some money for yourself. So, and after some time, the thing just took on a life of its own, and it started spreading. And we have those we call the key agents, because we obviously cannot manage this from the head office. We don't have anybody in sales on a payroll. Everybody is actually a micro entrepreneur working for himself, for him or herself. But then the key agent knows that he or she must keep the evangelist happy. Because instead of, by the time you get to a village, maybe about 50 people already wants to buy the items, especially where it matures. But it start by people wanting to help their family and friends. Then later they say they can make some money. But I think most importantly, it is a good product that is actually making a difference in their lives. And it works so well with cook stoves that we eventually introduced solar lanterns built on the same network, and it works well all the time. And I think it's not about the pricing. That one experience I have seen very much in marketing in Africa. It's about consumer financing. I believe you take this for granted in the developed world, but in Africa it's a different, you don't get money for investment. There's nothing like consumer financing. But most of the people that we claim they don't have money actually have the money. What they need is just an opportunity to pay over time. And this is what has helped for us. And when all those ingredients are in place, a good product, a good network of satisfied customers, and not sitting down expecting your customers to come, They actually give you the name of hunting, which I must confess I like, you know. But what we are actually doing is looking for customers. We believe that we cannot sit down and expect people to find us in our village. We actually have to. You cannot claim you have sold a Toyota cook stove or a solar lantern until it is in the hand of a customer. And one other lesson I found out is that it is a good product itself that its own best ambassador.
Thank you.
I don't
Suraj.
want to see anything in the store. Just give it out and then it goes.
Thank you very much, Suraj. Let's try to focus on the Salesforce organization because otherwise it's going to become very tricky to keep times for questions. So building on what you said about your network of entrepreneurs, actually the two other persons we have here also have local entrepreneurs placed in the village. So let's talk about Shimo, for example. You have grown this network of, I think, more than 1,400 local entrepreneurs that you call Sati in the villages in a few years only. How do you manage this growth from a sales management perspective and sales recruitment perspective? How do you go that fast?
So initially what we have seen is we always had the aim of growing that fast, but it wasn't really possible initially because what we said was even if a frontline manager has a key performance indicator that you have to grow by so many sathis, you have to grow by recruiting say a couple of people every 2 months or 3 months or something like that. What ended up happening was you get a lot of warm bodies there, people who are sathis, but they're not really selling a lot. They're just there to make up the numbers. So what we learned that it wasn't just the concept of monetizing incentives based on increasing sathis, but also the fact that we should have processes and systems in place to ensure that the sathi who is coming in is productive. So we have to also ensure that every sathi who is coming in, he has the confidence to be productive. So a lot of our sathis, the churn or attrition in sathis typically happens in the first few months. So you need to understand that, okay, if a sathi is going to leave the system, that is basically because he doesn't have confidence that he'll be able to sell enough of the product. So coupled with measures to improve a new sathi's confidence levels in the first few months, and also given the fact that we have improved our processes and IT systems to ensure that the sathis who have been recruited are actually productive sathis, and the fact that it's now a key performance indicator for our frontline managers. I think that has helped us a lot to grow sathi levels in the especially last 2 quarters.
And how do you manage to manage them at that scale and get them to get consistent performance over time?
To be honest, it's an issue we are still grappling with. What we have seen is when we have tighter management controls, each of the sathis is that much more productive. Over time, we have been able to increase the productivity of a new sathi who comes into the system, but it's not been that great. I mean, over the past 1.5 years, we should have improved it by leaps and bounds, but it hasn't really been possible. So, and when we kind of increase the touch points a field staff has to have, if he had like 2 before, now he has like 5 or 6 sathis to manage. It becomes all the more difficult. What we have seen is kind of jotting down that every interaction a frontline manager has with the sathi very scientifically in terms of you got to do these 4 things, you got to do these 5 things in the first 2 times you meet, you got to do this, making it very process driven whenever you meet your village level entrepreneur. Helps us optimize the frontline manager's time and ensure that he's able to prioritize his time effectively now among a much larger sales force.
So formalizing the management processes to manage at that scale, okay. And last but not least, Molly. So I have 2 questions for you. One is, I think you use mobile for your coaching systems in particular to give immediate feedback and all this to your entrepreneurs. Could you explain this? And the second one is you're in the process of changing your Salesforce organization. So could you tell us why and what are the differences between the two?
Yeah, so just as a reminder, so Living Goods, operates a network of micro entrepreneurs, and we're selling across a broad product spectrum in nutrition, health, fast-moving consumer goods as well as these consumer durables. And so kind of key to building this kind of part-time sales force. Obviously, they're earning kind of a commission on the sale of each product. And there's been some interesting learnings for us. So in terms of as we look at the sales productivity per agent over kind of our 3 to 4 years of data that we look, our sales productivity per agent has not gone up a whole lot. Like we initially thought when we modeled out this business that we were going to see like a nice S curve in terms of kind of the sales productivity per agent. But actually what we've seen is that, it's been relatively consistent. But interestingly, folks continue to be motivated to work in this business, even earning, relatively modest sums. So you're earning, $20 to $30 a month in profit. Not a whole lot. This is kind of supplemental income to other things you're doing, but kind of given our overall kind of impact objectives around, improving kind of the health and nutrition and kind of livelihoods of customers, if they're able to, as long as they stay active and they're still kind of interacting with customers, we see that as okay. And so interestingly, what we've been thinking a lot about is, so how can we grow the kind of number of agents and micro entrepreneurs that we can support per kind of sales manager and fixed cost kind of distribution point. And so we're doing several things, and mobile is one of the tools that we're using, and we're also experimenting with a couple of models. So in our mobile system, we now have kind of real-time information on both kind of our impact metrics, so all of our agents are uploading if they treat a child for malaria, or if they're registering kind of a certain segment of a customer, like a pregnant woman or a newborn. We get that information into our system. We also have them when they start their business, go out and basically do somewhat of like a household census, gathering cell phone numbers of all their customers. So we have this like large database of customer numbers. So we're able to use that both from a customer's perspective in terms of marketing, but then we also have, we now require all of our agents to have mobile phones. And this has become a really critical tool for us because our sales managers and our headquarters can communicate directly with our agents. And we can tailor those messages based on the performance that we're seeing on the sales side, on the impact side. So we can start to kind of segment our agent kind of sales force to optimize the kind of time and the kind of coaching and mentoring that they get, based on their performance. And these kind of different groups, and kind of, I think, similar to Shimul's point with Greenlight Planet, you start to really be very prescriptive in the kind of activities and touches that your sales manager will have with your agent base. You can really optimize their time and therefore serve many more agents kind of per distribution point. So one of the experiments we're in the process of doing right now is testing kind of a multi-level component to this sales force. So, when you look across all the direct selling industries, you look at an Avon, Amway, and Natura. Avon's selling $10 billion, over 5 million agents, 140 countries. This direct selling kind of business model is a really powerful business model in the commercial sector for all kinds of products. So, how can we really optimize that? We've really tried to learn from that to see how we can apply it to these markets. And they do a couple of things. One is often they have a multi-level component. So we're just testing now a one-level multi-level whereby kind of an upline agent can recruit other agents, and they get kind of basically a referral bonus for bringing somebody into the system. And they get some small percentage of their kind of downline sales. Thereby, they are kind of encouraged to do some of the mentoring and coaching and training that previously we would have relied on our kind of sales manager to do. So you can kind of more quickly kind of grow your agent network. The other thing that these direct sales companies do really well is they really tap into the kind of intrinsic, kind of motivation of an agent network. So when we talk with our agents, we ask them, why do you do this? The first thing they talk about is the status in the community, and they talk about the respect they get from their neighbors. The second thing they'll mention is the ability to make a difference, and then third, they say, I can pick up my bag anytime and I can go make some money. And so this status piece is really interesting, and so we'll do, top seller of the month. I think to some of what Henning is talking about in terms of kind of having kind of these big events where you recognize top performers, you recognize most improved performers, and you really can kind of tap into kind of the motivation and the drive from some of the recognition and status.
Thank you very much. Just to make one point of this, from what we've seen in the study, basically the events and awards and all this are really helpful to like increase salespeople's productivity, but not so much for the retention piece, where, as we saw in the presentation, it's mainly the compensation that makes a big difference apparently.
So I think it's a really interesting question, and it's something that we're actually, as we look at kind of the key drivers of, sustainability and kind of sales for us, we look at kind of how can we innovate some on training and kind of the initial costs associated with that. In our core model, we've traditionally have a pretty intensive recruitment and screening process where we're looking, we get recommendations from community leaders and, and other agents, and folks come in, they do a literacy test, a numeracy test. We have them fill out kind of an outreach plan. This is very typical, like what you do through the Avon system, to get a sense of how well they're connected in the community and the kinds of, the trust-based relationships that they already have. And then we have them do a very quick interview where they practice selling us something. And so we really are assessing their marketing and kind of sales capability, as well as the kind of trust that they've already and connections they have in the community. And then we put them through a 3-week training. And given our impact objectives around kind of health and nutrition as well, there's a piece of it that is, on training in those areas, but also the business training, managing your working capital, your customer service relationships, the key selling tips for each of the products and product categories. And then they do some time that's in the field training. We link them up with a current entrepreneur so they get some kind of on-the-job training. In addition to the classroom, and then we have a monthly touch with them. So they're coming back for monthly in-services, and this is an opportunity if we introduce a new product, if you've, for any change in kind of our systems and reporting, for us to kind of, it's just like a regular touch point. But that's quite costly to do it that way. And so in this kind of experimental branch that we're launching, where we have this multi-level component, we're doing a lot, we're making the training, we're not making the training mandatory. So they come in, they do an initial training of kind of a couple of hours, really in just the basics of a few kind of top-selling products and the key selling tools. And then we have a series of kind of video-based facilitated trainings that folks are going through in different product categories and the certain kind of customer segments, like how you support pregnant women and what kinds of products and services you can offer. And so I think the future for us is a lot more, and this is an open system, anybody can come in, so we have men and women, folks are buying in. And so I think that the future is somewhere in between, but I think increasingly we're thinking about the use of technology for training, and with the increasing use of smartphones and mobile technology, you can increasingly do more training and coaching via mobile, so you won't necessarily have to do as much kind of in-person upfront. I think there still may be some value to having some kind of quick screen on the inbound side in terms of kind of getting the best people into the system.
Thank you, Molly. Suraj?
Yes, leverages the power of the informal sector. Most of our agents are women, and I can tell you African women are already very good business women. They actually train me more than I train them. So we allow it to happen naturally. The people that are interested are already doing it on their own, telling other people about it. Those are the people we usually select. And what we do is to incentivize them, and then later we bring them into the head office occasionally to tell them the best practices, what has worked in other places. It's actually like a learning session for everybody. But I can tell you we don't pay anything in terms of dollars or terms of money. We believe we are all learning from each other, and we do a lot of hands-on training. And we have some process of like apprenticeship. If we train you, we tell you what we are doing, you become part of the Toyola family, you are obliged to train 2 other persons, from surround. You don't get paid for that because somebody put you through at a certain stage. We do that for our production side and our marketing side. So it's like our guy is going, you know, the boss is good. So we put somebody with a good salesperson, and that's it.
So once the salesperson are out, they do the whole job of finding the evangelist.
Yeah, and finding the evangelist, and then we make you see this during the training, the training session. We make you see that it's actually in your interest not to be selfish. Train somebody else because you are actually handing some money. Maybe you are making $2. You train somebody in another village and say, look, for every stove you sell, I give you $1. So whatever you hand from that person is actually money you will never hand, you know. And people, that's why I don't know the number of evangelists we actually have now. It's just over 500 in the value chain as per the last count. But then people have seen that it's their interest not only to sell well, but to train other people to sell, not just so that you make more money. So we link everything to the pocket. You know, money is so important to us. So it's a good motivator all along the value chain. And the training aspect is inbuilt, you know, and it just goes on. But I believe that as we expand, we have to pay more attention to maybe more formal training. But for now, it works well for us. And it's not a complex thing. They're actually products that sell themselves because the needs are there.
Thank you. So Henning?
Well, ideally, in our case, I mean, we work with or recruit like community leaders, and a lot of times they were also like former clients from Patrimonio. So in this case, the training, I mean, anyway, they get the kind of training, they have to get even certified, qualified or kind of certification. But the best case for us is always that it's a former client, so it's very easy already to sell the product and your testimony, so you can really prove what you're selling, right? But in general, it's like a 1 month kind of certification, where on one hand you have this sales manager who's giving this weekly meetings, and there you receive some more like theoretical training. And on the other hand, the coordinator is responsible also to do the in-field training. You know? And the other question, I mean, about if we work with some other kind of networks, or we are looking for, I don't know, to find some other initiative for marketing in this sense, or to sell. So far, we have basically worked with promoters, like really like people from the communities, but we are now also starting to work with our local distributors, for example, because for them it's a very good business, of course, to work with Patrimonio, because we create them the demand. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to invest in an advertisement, etc. And of course, they're interested that they get more clients through Patrimonio. So we are starting to work with them that they are also doing marketing or sales for Patrimonio. So that's a kind of new channel, no? And on the other hand, we are like also piloting the Net Promoter Score, so the customer satisfaction, so that in Patrimonio, around like 60% of our clients tell us that they came to Patrimonio because of other people who told them that they were really happy and satisfied with the product or with the housing improvements services from Patrimonio. So now we are trying or piloting to give direct incentives to our customers to recommend us, and so that they can even save some of the money they have to invest for the housing improvements through recommendations to Patrimonio. No? That's like 2 new channels we are testing.
Thank you very much. A great way of combining the 2 questions. Shimul, if you want to answer both at once, and then we'll go back to the first ones who can maybe also answer your question.
So, we are kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from living goods and more towards Suraj's side. So we don't spend all that much amount of time training our sathis. It's typically about, and when I say training, not the on-job training part of it, only the part where they have to give product demonstrations and making sure they know how to install the product right and all that. So that typically is less than a day, maybe a few hours. But as far as the on-job training is concerned, that is typically a much longer process. We try to, and especially in the last few quarters, we have tried to ensure that at least the newer Sathis who come in, we give them much longer touch points than what we have given earlier in the past. The frontline managers, on the other hand, have a couple of days training typically in our headquarters to ensure that they understand what is expected of them. And since we have gotten a lot more prescriptive about their daily beats or rounds and what they're expected to do on that, so that's a fairly involved process where they have to understand that whenever they go to a village, they are supposed to do these 5 things. So their induction process is typically a bit longer. But for the Sathis, it's typically on-the-job training, and we ensure that at least for the first few customer sales, the frontline manager is present during that time to ensure that he's prescribing the product in the right fashion.
And it's really quite intensive in terms of coaching, right? In the sense that you have each sales manager has to spend at least half a day a week with his Satis in the first weeks.
Yeah, so in terms of touch points, typically what happens is almost in a week, the frontline manager is expected to cover his Satis at least twice, which is not going to be very feasible as we scale up. But again, we are hoping that we come up with enough prioritization techniques so that at least for the older Sathis who are, selling quite a lot, they know their selling techniques, we know that they are compliant, they do a good job out of things, we don't really need to see them every week.
Okay.
So. I think one thing we have to understand, at least in the markets we are in currently, is a product a push product or a pull product, right? So if you already have, like, say through above the line marketing efforts, you already have a demand for the product which is generated, then keeping it at the local store, keeping it at distributor shops, people will naturally queue up and then get it done, and it's simply a question of good marketing efforts there. But if you have to have that touch base and convince the customer of the product, then I think a touch point between either the Sathi or the that sales force could see a big difference. The touch points may not be so many. Maybe there's no door-to-door campaigning. Maybe it's more of a village kind of an activity. So those kind of things might see a change. But I still believe in the future we'll still see a lot of activity which is centered on physical interactions with the customers.
Molly and Suraj, do you want to add anything on this question?
I agree with Shimul. I think I would just add, I think it depends on, if you think about just the maturity, kind of the level of penetration that you've got of the, of your products and the kind of product that it is. In our business and some of the health products, there will always be kind of a behavior change component where that kind of one-to-one interaction is really effective. And but when you start to think about some of the technology products, and as the market matures and as they become more readily available, I think using the retail outlets makes a whole lot of sense in terms of kind of getting to scale and supporting it via different kinds of marketing efforts.
Suraj, do you want to add anything to this, or?
They have said it all, but I just want to say I'm very optimistic about the future of marketing to the BOP, given the sheer need I can see. And I know that if one can really go to where the needs are, there's a lot of potential there. So I think we're in good business, but we need to get there, and we need a lot of help getting there. I have a funny way of answering that question. The first help is, there are three needs. The first is money, the second is money, and the third is money. Because you need money to, especially for those of us from Africa who were born into the problem and we see it every day, you have a very good idea of how to tackle the problem, but you don't really have money to do it. I'm an example. It took me 5 years to raise money to really bring my idea to fruition. But there are several thousands of people, most of whom are much more brilliant than me, who are not as lucky as I do. So I believe that if we have the money to start our businesses, number two, I cannot do what I have done if I don't have money. I'm not proud to tell you this. I had to borrow money from the United States. I didn't get any money from Africa to start the business. That was why I was able to say, take the stove. If you don't like it, give me back. If I don't have money to produce the stove in the first place, can I do that? If I don't have money to buy the solar lantern, which I'm giving to people to now use the Toyota box to pay me, will I do that? One of the biggest things I've seen is that in Africa, it's not about pricing. It's about consumer financing. But somebody has to finance it in the first place.
So it's business support.
Yes, business support, but financial support. You either give me money or you give me products. What I know very well is that the demand is out there. I find it very funny when people are talking, they want to promote solar or they want to promote stoves. The place I sell, they beg me to buy it. You know, I go into a village and everybody wants a solar lantern. Or I go into somewhere to say, I have sold 300,000 stoves. I probably should have sold 3 million if I have sufficient financial resources. And it's so funny when I come to the Western world and people start talking millions, you know. It's difficult for me to comprehend even where I'm here. And then you cannot imagine those who are still there thinking of how to get 10 or 20,000 to start a business. And then you say, look, there's a lot of money out there, you know, actually to be invested at the bottom of the pyramid. I think there should be a marriage of the two. And it is going to even make commercial sense because there's a lot of potential down there. And I think for many years to come, the only thing we have to worry about is to really get enough to get there, you know, provided we go to the right places where the needs are greatest. Thank you very much. One of the things I have found out is I won't need managers if I don't have a business. You know, I'm not thinking of building up layers of management. And I have seen a lot of very good materials out there, you know. And what saddens me is that I found the best talents in the most unlikely places. They need training, obviously, but if you see what they can do for themselves, and you see the training we are talking about and the management we are talking about has to be really adapted to the bottom, to the level we are talking about. The management has to start at the village level. Most of the people in the Toyota value chain are village-level entrepreneurs. Sometimes I call some of them great managers. I have a woman, she has sold maybe about 6,000 or 7,000 stoves, and she has also recruited a lot of people. That is a management material which I have to train. But sometimes if she writes, it's very difficult for you to even see it. But the point is that she's able to do what I give her to do. So there's a need for management at all levels, but as I've said, I need help to do that. I need money to do that. I have a good idea of what I want to do now. How do I do it? It's very easy to talk about it here. Down there, I have to work within the resources available to me.
Thanks, Suraj. Maybe one word from one of you, and then we'll have to stop there.
Well, in our case, I agree with you. That's a big challenge. And I mean, we give training to the sales managers, we give training to the sales force, to the coordinators and promoters, but it's not always satisfying, no? The results. And that's one of the reasons why we are also looking for other channels. I mean, we have reached a lot. We have impacted on 300,000, 75,000 families. That's more than 1.7 Mexicans. I mean, like, Mexicans. However, to scale up more, we are now really looking for other channels, right? Because it works very well with the promoters, but there's a kind of struggle to really scale up more. So that's why we are basically looking for other additional or complementary channels to make the sales. And even what we heard also in the presentation, it has or it worked so far very well within Patrimonio Hoy, the marketing below the line, but we are also piloting now something above the line, no? To have a bit more credibility. I mean, it's about local TV stations, about local radio stations. It's not like at the national level, no, but also to impact from this side on the market. So this is still a challenge, I would say.
Thank you. Would one of you two like to have one last word? I mean, I guess you should both have one last word, but short.
Yeah, I would just add a couple of points to that question. I mean, I think the on-the-job training for our sales managers, so we just get some of our best sales managers and they really mentor. We have initial training, and then we also identify some of our best entrepreneurs. There's some, you know, I mean, not always our best entrepreneurs, but the ones who have that kind of, some of those kind of coaching management potential, and we've brought them onto the team.
Thank you. Shimul, the word of the end.
I think the managers which we typically see distinctively fall into two categories, one driven by passion, one driven by money. And the money managers, they do well for a few months, but then, you know, there's burnout or anyone offers them 10,000 rupees more and then they'll suddenly shift. And it's a bit difficult to make, train these guys. Whereas on the other hand, if somebody is actually convinced of our social mission, is actually happy lighting up all those villages, is actually, you know, cares for the TL, cares for the organization itself, then we see that, you know, productivity-wise, he might be slower initially, but definitely in the long run, it definitely benefits us as an organization. So what we have tried in the past to like improve managerial levels is basically improve their engagement with us.
The culture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's
Great
beautiful.
point.
So basically to get good managers, make them love you, and that will work. Nice word for the end. So thank you all for attending. Thank to our wonderful panel for their information sharing.